This is LA Machineguns, and it's part of the Gunblade NY and LA Machineguns Arcade Hits Pack that Sega released back on the Nintendo Wii. I reviewed this game all the way back in 2010 and haven't played it in close to 8 years. That is, until now. This is Review Rewind, the show where I revisit my old reviews to see if I like them more, less, or about the same as I did all those years ago. Join me as I play Gunblade NY and LA Machineguns Arcade Hits Pack and rip apart my 2010 review in this episode of Review Rewind. This is going to be one of those rare times where I get to revisit a game for a third time. Long before I reviewed Gunblade NY and LA Machineguns Arcade Hits Pack on the Wii, I played both of these games in the arcade. I thought they were both solid light gun games at the time, but much preferred what Namco was doing with Time Crisis and Point Blank. Fast forward a few years and I find myself trashing the Wii compilation disc, giving it a D and calling it one of the worst games of 2010. I wonder which side I'm going to come down on now that it's 2018. Sega is the company that likes to release and re-release their biggest hits, hence why you see so many versions of Virtua Fighter and Sonic the Hedgehog. Although the Wii compilation has the word hit right in the title, there's a reason why these two arcade shooters are only now making their way to home consoles. Gunblade NY and LA Machineguns are not two of Sega's most popular games. If you've seen them, it's probably when you realized you didn't want to pay $2 for a single turn on an oversized arcade machine. But here they are, wrapped up in one neat little package for a reduced price. So not to derail this review almost immediately, but I kinda wish that Sega would do more re-releasing in the present day. I know that critics like me used to give them a lot of shit for relying on questionable ports to pay the bills. But if I'm being honest, I'd love to see Virtua Fighter and the rest of their catalog on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Switch. Now, back to the game at hand. A reoccurring theme in my 2010 review is that Sega waited too long to release this compilation. While I agree that waiting until the system was nearly at the end of their life certainly didn't help anything, I'm not so sure that it would have mattered if the game came out in 2006. Neither of these games are particularly great on their own, and this package was always going to be a hard sell. The gameplay is nothing more than an on-rail shooter, where all you have to do is move the cursor around the screen and shoot baddies. You have absolutely no control over where the helicopter goes, you just have to be ready to shoot the missiles out of the air and take out the bad guys on the ground. There's no depth here, you don't even have to take your finger off of the trigger. After fighting through all 8 levels, I looked at the clock and was shocked that it took me less than 20 minutes. This is the central problem of both Gunblade NY and LA Machineguns. It's not that the game is on rails, that genre certainly has its place, but rather that neither of these games were built to last very long. I mean, the arcade machines were built to keep the game going just long enough until you got bored and moved on to the next cabinet. Your expectations in the arcade are significantly different than what you want on a console. These are the kinds of games you might download for $5 each, at most. Now, a point I only briefly touched on in my 2010 review is that Sega should have packed this Wii disc with a lot more than 2 barely remembered light gun games. Why not make this a big collection full of games like Virtua Cop, The House of the Dead, or even Laser Ghost? Nobody was clamoring for ports of Gunblade NY and LA Machineguns, and Sega knew it. I have a hunch they spent about as much time making this collection as it takes to beat it. Along with the cheesy graphics and repetitive gameplay, you also have to put up with the terrible voice acting and sound effects. The one cool thing this game does is pipe some spoken dialogue through the Wii remote, which at least keeps it separate from the horrible noise going through the surround sound speakers. It's enough to give me a headache. I can't believe I thought the audio coming out of the Wii remote was cool. Look, the tech was novel at the time, but it's been done so much better since then. Put bluntly, the audio coming out of the control's tiny speakers sounds atrocious. It's the kind of garbled mess you would have expected on the Nintendo Entertainment System. And it's non-stop, which does it no favors. While neither of these games are all that great, LA Machineguns is definitely the better of the two. The graphics are better, the action is more exciting, there's a combo system, and this time around you can't just shoot blindly at the screen. It also has a bad habit of wanting to escape LA about as much as Snake Plissken. The game quickly flies to Alcatraz and Yosemite, neither of which are in Los Angeles. I like the diversity of locations, but the name is a bit misleading. As an arcade game, I can understand the appeal. Sure, it was expensive and probably not worth it, but there's something about grabbing those giant machine guns and shooting your way through downtown New York City. Unfortunately, this sensation is completely absent in this Wii compilation, leaving us with two generic on-rail shooters with nothing to offer. I agree with the D score for my 2010 take, but feel that my review could have had a lot more bite. I'll say now what I should have said then. There's not a day that should go by where Sega isn't ashamed for releasing Gunblade NY and LA Machineguns Arcade Hits Pack on the Wii. Shame. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Review Rewind. Here's the question I have for you. What's your favorite light gun game? I know a lot of them are on-rail shooters, but I've always been partial to the Point Blank series on PlayStation. There was just something about the competitive nature and mini-games that won me over. Let me hear your picks in the comments below. We'll be back next Friday with another episode of Review Rewind, but don't forget to check out all of our other content. I recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.